Sophia had always been the kind of employee people overlooked, until they needed her. Behind the scenes at a Chicago-based freight tech firm, she was the engine that kept everything running. No drama, no noise, just results. 2 years of unwavering dedication. Managing multi-million-dollar client portfolios. Solving emergencies before they became disasters. And never asking for recognition. Her boss, Mason, liked to call her efficient. That was his word for people who didn't cause problems. On the outside, Sophia looked like the perfect support player. But inside, something had shifted. That Christmas, she received a $25 AMC gift card in a beige envelope. No note. No acknowledgement of her work. There wasn't even an AMC theater in Illinois nearby. That gift wasn't just thoughtless. It was intentional. A message wrapped in corporate politeness. You're replaceable. Sophia knew in that moment she had reached her peak, at least in his eyes. But she was just getting started. Quietly, without fanfare, she began documenting every workflow, training a junior analyst, and laying the groundwork for something she didn't yet have words for. She wasn't just preparing to leave. She was preparing to vanish, with precision. It was a Thursday morning when Sophia handed in her resignation. Calm, professional, she walked into Mason's corner office with a printed letter and a simple smile. She didn't expect fanfare, but she did expect basic decency, a nod, a handshake, maybe a generic, good luck. Instead, Mason didn't even look up from his desk. Sit, he said flatly, pointing to the chair across from him like she was late to a disciplinary hearing. Sophia sat, her hands rested in her lap, composed, while her heart pounded beneath her blazer. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, rehearsing every possible outcome, but she hadn't rehearsed this. Mason picked up his phone. Let's get legal on the line, he said, dialing on speaker. He leaned back, a smirk dancing at the corners of his mouth like he was about to enjoy a performance. Sophia blinked. Excuse me? He didn't answer, just stared at her, waiting. A click, a hollow dial tone, and then a clipped voice answered. Legal, this is Connor. Connor, I've got Sophia here. She's just submitted her resignation. We need to go over paragraph 12. The silence that followed was long. Strategic, meant to rattle her. Sophia recognized the tactic immediately. It was something Mason did often in client meetings. Using silence like a blade. Connor cleared his throat. Sophia, per your employment contract, you are subject to a 12-month non-compete clause. This includes any role in sales, logistics, operations, or support functions in the freight or supply chain industries. Violation could result in legal action. Sophia didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She didn't say a single word. Instead, she studied Mason, the way he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes narrowed in satisfaction. This wasn't about contracts. It was about power. He thought this would scare her, humiliate her, make her regret leaving. But Mason had underestimated the depth of her planning. Weeks before this meeting, Sophia had already accepted a position at a tech-forward startup headquartered in Denver. A company with an entirely different approach, collaborative, ethical, future-focused. Her new role was in systems architecture. Technically outside the scope of the non-compete. She wouldn't be selling. She wouldn't be managing clients. She'd be building something bigger. Still, Mason had no way of knowing that. And he didn't care. He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. You're making a mistake, he said. You won't find another company that lets you do what I let you do here. The arrogance was staggering. Sophia tilted her head. I didn't ask for permission. I did the job. Connor from legal piped back in. We'll be sending documentation later today. You are advised not to contact any clients or discuss proprietary information. This includes platforms, vendors, and internal processes. Understood, Sophia said finally, her voice even. She stood. No drama, no last word, just poise. As she walked out of Mason's office, something cracked behind her. A pen tossed across the desk? A file slammed shut? She didn't look back. By the time she reached the parking lot, Sophia's hands were trembling, but not from fear, from fury. She had given everything to that company. Late nights, missed family events, weekends spent fixing problems Mason didn't even know existed. And this was how they responded. With threats. With silence. With legal intimidation masquerading as professionalism. She drove straight home, sat at her kitchen table, and opened her laptop. The email from legal arrived within the hour, filled with formal phrasing and highlighted clauses. She read it once, twice, 3 times, then she closed it and didn't respond. Instead, she contacted her new employer. She told them everything, transparently, without hesitation. The CEO, Daniel, listened quietly. When she finished, he said something she never expected to hear. "We've seen this before. They're bluffing." Sophia blinked. "You're not concerned?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, calm and assured. "If they had a case, they'd file it. They wouldn't leave voicemails. And if they do file, we'll back you. I stand by you." She didn't cry, but something inside her broke, something old. The weight of years spent bracing for the worst, for being alone, lifted. She finally understood what real leadership looked like. Not dominance, not volume, but protection, integrity, strength through support. The days that followed were quieter than expected. No lawsuits, no escalation, but the silence was charged. A pause before the next move. Sophia stayed under the radar. No LinkedIn updates. No job change announcements. No photos of new desks or inspirational quotes. Just quiet rebuilding. Behind the scenes, she got to work. Her new role wasn't glamorous, and she didn't want it to be. She spent her days mapping workflows, auditing bottlenecks, simplifying processes that had been bloated for years in the industry. She designed scalable infrastructure for onboarding, logistics coordination, and client communications. And for the first time in years, she didn't have to fight for permission to improve things. She was allowed to build. By month 3, the company had its first successful pilot. Small scale, quiet, but impactful. Clients noticed. Word began to spread. And then one day, a simple email arrived in Sophia's inbox from a senior procurement officer at one of her old company's largest accounts. "We're shopping vendors." No preamble, no fluff. Sophia didn't respond immediately. She forwarded the email to Daniel with a one-line question. "If a former client knocks, do we open the door?" Daniel replied within minutes. "Only if you want to answer it." And that was the shift. That was the moment everything changed. From survival to strategy. From fear to quiet control. She didn't poach. She didn't chase. But they came anyway. Because while Mason was busy quoting contracts, Sophia was quietly rewriting the future. It started with a voicemail. Sophia had just finished reviewing internal dashboards with her team when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message preview. Just a red notification badge. Her breath caught. It was a private number, again. She stepped into the hallway, away from the chatter, and pressed play. "Miss Carter, this is Gregory Hale, Chief Legal Liaison Officer for your former employer. I'd like to have a conversation regarding your recent employment decisions and how they may affect your professional standing. It's in your best interest to respond promptly." Click. No greeting. No goodbye. Just veiled threat wrapped in corporate tone. He didn't even say the company's name. But Sophia knew exactly who it was. The calls kept coming. Sometimes twice a day. Always from a blocked number. Always without warning. She stopped answering after the third one. It wasn't fear. It was contempt. Gregory never asked questions. Just dropped statements crafted to rattle her. "Have you reviewed your contract recently? You're aware certain clients are still considered under restricted access? Your new employer may not understand the full implications of your departure." She said nothing. Not a word. Not even to hang up. Silence, she realized, was her most strategic weapon. But they weren't done. A week later, Daniel called her into his office. Sophia walked in expecting a routine check-in. But the look on his face said otherwise. "They reached out," he said, sliding his phone across the desk. "Listen." Another voicemail, this time addressed directly to Daniel. Gregory's voice again, controlled, almost smug. "This is a courtesy call to inform you that Miss Carter's involvement in current operations may constitute a violation of her prior contractual agreements. We advise immediate compliance to avoid escalation. Legal consequences are possible." Sophia waited for Daniel to say something. Instead, he hit stop and looked at her. "You okay?" She nodded, though her jaw was tight. "They're trying to make me a liability." Daniel leaned forward, elbows on the desk. They don't have a case. If they did, they'd file. They're trying to scare us into backing down. Sophia exhaled. Do you want me to step back? Absolutely not, he said firmly. They're afraid because we're doing something right. It was the first time someone had stood in front of her rather than behind her. She didn't know how much she needed that until it happened. But the storm hadn't passed. That Friday, the HR manager at Sophia's new company forwarded her an email. It was vague, worded like a routine inquiry, asking for confirmation of Sophia's role, her access to sensitive data, and whether she had interacted with any legacy clients. It didn't come from Mason. It came from a partner firm affiliated with her former employer, a backdoor tactic. Then the calls started, to the CEO's assistant, then directly to the CEO himself. One voicemail accused her of direct client interference. Another hinted that she was in breach of a restrictive covenant. Sophia was sure this would be it. The kind of pressure that makes people walk away quietly. To avoid the noise. She had seen it before. How corporations weaponize fear. How they push just hard enough that someone breaks before the fight even begins. But something was different this time. Daniel didn't flinch. He called her into his office again. No panic, no demands, just support. Do you want to hear it? He asked. Sophia shook her head. I know what it says. He smiled. Then I'll summarize. It's empty, loud, but empty. If they had a real claim, they'd come with paperwork, not voicemails. And then he said the one thing her former boss never would have. I trust you. That moment changed everything. Because Sophia finally saw it. They were trying to bury her with fear. But she had already climbed out of the hole. They weren't trying to stop her. They were trying to slow her down. But they were too late. The next few weeks passed quietly. Too quietly. No new threats. No lawsuits. No official notices. But Sophia could feel it, the watching. The way people in the industry hesitated before speaking her name. How former colleagues sent cryptic messages like, "Are you okay?" and "They're asking around." She kept her head down. No LinkedIn updates. No media features. She even asked Daniel not to announce her role publicly. He agreed without hesitation. Behind the scenes, she continued building. Her team expanded. Her frameworks evolved. Her systems improved. And quietly, word began to spread. Not because she promoted herself, but because clients noticed. Clients remembered. One by one, familiar names appeared in her inbox. Not to poach, not to gossip, just to reconnect. One message stopped her cold. We're shopping vendors. It came from the lead strategist at a major client of her old company, one she had onboarded personally. Managed for 18 months. Saved during a warehouse fire reroute fiasco. And never got credit for. Sophia stared at the message for a long time. She hadn't reached out. She hadn't broken any rules. But still, they came looking. She messaged Daniel immediately. If a former client knocks, do we open the door? His reply came in less than 60 seconds. Only if you want to answer it. Sophia didn't smile. Not yet. Because this wasn't a celebration. It was the turning point. It was the moment everything shifted, from escape to opportunity. From defense to offense. She realized she didn't need revenge. All she needed was to keep doing her job so well that they couldn't look away. And the moment she agreed to take on that former client, ethically, legally, cleanly, she felt the pressure change. It wasn't crushing anymore. It was fueling her. Because now she wasn't just rebuilding. She was rising. Sophia sat in the dim glow of her apartment. The Chicago skyline glittering behind her through tall glass windows. She wasn't celebrating. She wasn't relieved. She was awake, fully. Finally awake to a truth that had been simmering for years. She had spent her entire career trying to be the one who never caused problems. The one who answered emails at midnight. Picked up slack without complaint. Smiled through exhaustion. Not because she was weak. But because she believed, deeply, that loyalty and performance would speak for themselves. But they didn't. At her old job, she had been invisible until she tried to leave. Only then did she become a threat. And that realization, sharp, undeniable, changed everything. She didn't want to fight anymore. She wanted to win, not in the way Mason would have defined it. With titles and control and fear. She wanted a different kind of win. One that left no fingerprints but rewrote the rules. The Sophia who once believed in staying quiet now understood the silence they respected wasn't compliance, it was calculation. At work, she moved differently. She no longer asked for permission to present new ideas. She simply built prototypes, tested results, and delivered outcomes that were impossible to ignore. She didn't try to impress. She tried to solve, and the difference showed. Her team started calling her the architect, not as a joke, but as a title of quiet reverence. She didn't seek credit, but credit found her. Because while Mason had always said, "You're lucky to be here," Daniel reminded her, "We're lucky to have you." That shift in energy gave Sophia something she'd never had before: clarity. She remembered a conversation from her early years. Back when she had just started at her old company, one of her male colleagues had pulled her aside and said, "You're too nice. That's why no one sees you coming." At the time, she'd taken it as criticism. Now, she saw it as prophecy. 2 months into her new role, Sophia attended a private industry roundtable. It was small, 20 people in a glass conference room overlooking the river. All department heads from top logistics firms. Mason wasn't there, but 2 of his executive peers were. When she walked in, they did a double take. Then the whispers started. She sat calmly, took notes, contributed once, brief, sharp, relevant. When the moderator asked if anyone had input on client retention, Sophia raised her hand. She didn't mention her old company. She didn't need to. Instead, she said, "Retention isn't about perks or pricing. It's about consistency. If your internal systems are chaotic, your clients will feel it before your reports reflect it. By the time they call, it's already too late." Silence followed, then slow nods. A man in a navy suit whispered to another exec, "That's the one they tried to threaten." She heard it. She didn't flinch. They weren't saying she was reckless. They were saying she'd survived and come back stronger. That night, Sophia sat alone at a rooftop bar downtown. She didn't order champagne, just a black coffee and silence. A woman next to her struck up a casual conversation, another exec from the conference. Older, seasoned, scarred. "You work with Daniel's firm, right?" she asked. Sophia nodded. "You're the one who made the case study." Sophia hesitated. "I contributed." The woman smiled. "No one says your name. But everyone knows it." There was no malice in her tone. Just awe. "You're doing more than building systems," she added. "You're building proof." Sophia sat with those words long after the woman left. Proof. That was the shift. She was no longer defending herself. She was becoming evidence. Living evidence that loyalty isn't about silence. And strength doesn't need to scream. And people were paying attention. Back at her old company, cracks were forming. She didn't need to check in. Former coworkers messaged her unsolicited. Whispers of high turnover. Of Mason losing control. Of clients asking questions no one wanted to answer. They're bleeding accounts. One former teammate said, "They replaced you with someone who can't even spell onboarding." Another wrote. Sophia didn't gloat. She didn't reply. She archived the messages and got back to work. But she made one quiet decision that marked a shift in her mindset. She bought a notebook, not a digital doc, not a shared file, a real leather-bound notebook. On the first page, she wrote 5 words. Build what they said was impossible. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about legacy. The next few weeks moved fast. Her team launched 2 more pilot programs. Client satisfaction scores hit record highs. Internal bottlenecks that had once taken months to fix were resolved in days. Daniel's company was quietly becoming the gold standard in onboarding. And Sophia's frameworks were at the heart of it all. And then one morning, it happened. A message came in from one of her old firm's top 3 clients. Not an NDA violation. Not a shady offer. Just a sincere note. "We're impressed with what we're hearing. Let us know if we can talk." It wasn't a door knock. It was a spotlight. Sophia didn't reply right away. She forwarded it to Daniel. "Do we talk to them?" she asked. His reply was short. "Only if you want to." And that's when it all crystallized. Sophia no longer needed to hope someone would see her value. She knew it. And more importantly, the industry knew it too. The message sat in Sophia's inbox for 3 days. "We're impressed with what we're hearing. Let us know if we can talk." It was from the regional vice president of Eastline Freight Solutions, one of the legacy clients she had handled during her final year at Mason's firm. The kind of client that brought 7 figures of recurring revenue and required the finesse of a tightrope walker. She had onboarded them herself, built the relationship from the ground up, even saved a major shipment crisis that would have lost them the account. And now they were reaching out. Sophia didn't panic, but she didn't celebrate either. She understood what this moment meant, an inflection point, one that could set off another round of accusations, veiled threats, or worse, legal posturing. The old company had tried once before to intimidate her out of relevance. But now she was being asked to take the lead. Not from revenge, but because she had built something better. She forwarded the message to Daniel and wrote one line. "I think it's time." They met in person. No Zoom calls, no chain of vague exploratory emails. Just a quiet meeting in a minimalist office space overlooking the lake. Sophia, Daniel, and 2 representatives from Eastline sat across from each other. The air was polite, measured, but beneath it all, Sophia could feel it, curiosity wrapped in calculation. The Eastline rep, a sharp, composed woman named Kara, leaned forward. "Let me be transparent," she said. "We don't leave vendors often. But we've been hearing things. And what we've heard about your systems, your process, well, we haven't seen anything like it in years." Sophia stayed composed. "What exactly are you looking for?" Kara paused. "Reliability, visibility, efficiency, all the things we thought we had. Until we started losing track of shipments. Having to chase updates, rechecking invoices for errors." Sophia nodded slowly. "Sounds familiar." There was a beat of silence. Everyone at the table knew where the problems originated. Daniel jumped in next. "We're not here to poach. We don't chase contracts. If you're looking to build something sustainable, we're open to a discussion. But only if the transition is clean, mutual, and strategic." Kara smiled. "That's exactly what we want." The client transition began quietly. There were no press releases, no bold LinkedIn posts, no chest-thumping headlines, just paperwork, signatures, and structure. Legal reviewed every document twice. Sophia's team followed protocol like clockwork. Eastline terminated their previous agreement officially before onboarding a single line of new service. Everything was transparent. Everything was clean. But it didn't go unnoticed. 3 days after the first handoff meeting, Sophia received a cease and desist letter. Subject: immediate action required, breach of contract allegations. Sender: Legal Department, Brighton Wells Holdings, her former employer. The language was familiar, cold, inflated, and deliberately threatening. They accused her of violating her non-compete clause. They cited paragraphs, quoted dates, claimed proximity. They demanded a response within 48 hours. Sophia read it once. Then she closed it. This time, she didn't feel her hands tremble. There was no breath caught in her throat. No spike of fear. Just clarity. Because she already knew the truth. Eastline's termination letter had been filed 2 full days before her team touched their first file. They weren't trying to win a legal battle. They were trying to create noise. Daniel didn't even blink when she brought the letter in. "Our legal team's already on it," he said, flipping through a folder. Inside, signed statements, time-stamped communications, system logs, client correspondence. "We respond on our terms. And this time, we do it publicly." 1 week later, Daniel's company released a short, bulletproof press statement. "We are aware of recent allegations related to client transitions. We affirm that all onboarding activities have been conducted in full compliance with contractual and legal guidelines. Our company remains committed to transparent, ethical business practices. We will not be commenting further at this time." No accusations, no names, just truth. But the message rang loud and clear. The same day, someone, most likely from inside the old firm, leaked the cease and desist letter. Not a summary, not a snippet. The full document, complete with contradictory dates and redactions that drew more attention than they hid. It hit industry blogs within hours. One headline read, "Power play backfires. Logistics giant accused of weaponizing legal threats. The commentary was savage. This feels desperate. Classic intimidation. Zero substance. Someone didn't check their timestamps. Sophia said nothing. She didn't need to. Inside her old company, chaos unfolded. She could feel it even without being there. Former coworkers messaged her quietly. Some apologized. Others shared gossip. Most just asked the same question. What's your endgame? But Sophia didn't have an endgame. She had an ecosystem. She had built it piece by piece. A loyal team. A high-performing infrastructure. A values-driven culture that didn't need to scream to succeed. By the end of the quarter, they had quietly onboarded 2 more former clients of Mason's firm. None of it involved outreach. None of it required pitch decks. The clients came to her. Not because she pursued them, but because she had finally become visible. The woman they once ignored was now the architect of their competition. One afternoon, Sophia opened her inbox to find a brief message from a junior associate at her old job. Someone who had once shadowed her quietly. Asked questions timidly, and took notes in the margins of meetings. They're starting to panic. It read. Just 5 words. She didn't reply. She didn't forward it. She simply closed the message and walked to the window. Down below, the city moved like clockwork. But up here, in her new world, everything was still. She realized then that this new wave of opportunity wasn't the product of revenge or retaliation. It was the reward of building with integrity. The gift of walking away the right way. By spring, Sophia had stopped looking over her shoulder. The fear that used to clutch her chest each time an unknown number rang was gone. The tension that used to sit behind her eyes whenever someone mentioned her old company dissolved. She hadn't noticed the exact moment it happened, but somewhere between building new systems and onboarding old clients, she had shed the skin of survival and stepped fully into command. She no longer saw herself as the woman who left something. She was now the woman who built something. And that shift changed everything. Her calendar used to be packed with reactive meetings, emergencies, client patch-ups, last-minute report scrambles. Now it was filled with strategy sessions, team brainstorms, and innovation sprints. She wasn't just fixing things anymore, she was designing the future. Her office, once a plain glass cube tucked in the corner, had slowly evolved into a quiet nerve center. Diagrams covered one wall, process maps, feedback loops, rollout timelines. Her desk was neat, purposeful, no clutter, just clarity, and her whiteboard held a single phrase in bold marker. Lead differently. That became her North Star. Sophia had once believed leadership meant power, presence, and control. That's what Mason had modeled: loud meetings, dramatic exits, late-night emails with urgent in all caps. But the more she led, the more she realized true leadership looked nothing like that. It looked like listening more than speaking. It looked like protecting your team from chaos instead of pushing them into it. It looked like never needing to say, "I'm the boss," because the work, the culture, the outcomes, those spoke for themselves. Her team had grown fast. What began as 3 analysts now spanned across operations, client experience, and tech. But Sophia was intentional. She didn't hire resumes, she hired resilience. People who had stories. People who knew what it meant to be overlooked, underestimated, or silenced. They didn't need ego stroking. They needed space to shine. And that's exactly what she gave them. Her weekly one-on-ones weren't just check-ins. They were coaching conversations. She didn't micromanage, she empowered. When someone failed, she didn't punish. She asked, "What did we learn?" And when someone succeeded, she didn't take credit. She made sure they got the spotlight. Word got out. Sophia had become the kind of leader people asked to work under. Not because she was flashy. Because she was real. 6 months after the East Line onboarding, Daniel pulled Sophia aside after a leadership meeting. "You're not going to like this," he started, grinning. "But I need to talk succession planning." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Whose role?" "Mine." She blinked. "What?" "I'm not leaving," he said quickly. "But I'm thinking long-term. 5 years. Maybe less. The board's already talking expansion. Investor rounds. I want someone who gets it. Who's seen the cracks and knows how to pour concrete. You've proven that over and over." Sophia froze. Not out of doubt. Out of disbelief. Because for the first time in her life, someone wasn't just acknowledging her value, they were preparing to elevate it. "I'll think about it," she said softly. And she meant it. A week later, she visited her parents back in Evanston. Her father, a retired civil engineer, poured her tea in the same chipped mug she used in high school. "You seem different," he said. Sophia looked up. "Different how?" "Like you're not trying to prove anything anymore. Like you finally believe it." She smiled. Because he was right. For years, she'd been building her career out of spite, desperation, exhaustion, chasing acknowledgement she thought had to be earned through overwork. But now, she was building from a place of clarity. She didn't just know her worth, she embodied it. Later that night, she found one of her old notebooks in her childhood closet. On the inside cover, she had written in small, almost apologetic handwriting, "Be the person they regret losing." She laughed softly. It had been a powerful motivator for a long time. But she had outgrown it. Now, she didn't want to be remembered by the people who mistreated her. She wanted to be followed by the ones who believed in her. And that shift in intention changed how she moved. She no longer designed her career to escape the past. She was now designing to shape the future. That future came into sharper focus 2 months later, when her team launched their proprietary onboarding tool, an automated, customizable, client-centered platform that consolidated tracking, vendor onboarding, and performance analytics in one seamless system. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, but it worked. Clients loved it, her team was proud of it. And the industry? They started talking. People wanted to know who built it, who made it work so well. And even though Sophia never attached her name to the tech publicly, people started connecting the dots. She didn't have to announce her return. She had already arrived. At an industry event that fall, a former colleague from Mason's firm approached her. She had been part of someone who had once apologized with eyes but never words. She looked nervous, but she still walked up. "I've followed your journey," she said. "I'm glad you kept going. Most people don't." Sophia nodded. "Kind but reserved. People talk about you now." The woman added. "But it's different. It's not scandal anymore. It's admiration." Sophia didn't respond immediately. Then she said, "They thought I left angry. But I didn't leave angry. I left ready." And she had never been more ready. To lead, to build, to rise. Not through noise, but through impact. It was a gray November afternoon when Sophia found herself standing across the street from her old company's building. Not by intention. She had a client meeting nearby and took a longer route back to her car. The skyline loomed above like a silent witness to everything she had endured and overcome. The building looked the same, polished glass, steel logo gleaming under overcast skies, but it felt emptier. The parking lot was half full. The lobby lights were dim. No one moved behind the front desk. A place once brimming with noise, with emails at midnight and panicked conference calls, now looked like a shell waiting to be sold. She didn't stop walking. She didn't take a photo. She didn't send a message to anyone inside. Because what used to be a battleground was now just a memory. And she had far better places to be. That same evening, Sophia received an unexpected email from a former intern named Zoe. They hadn't spoken in over a year. Back then, Zoe had been quiet, unsure, eager to please. She shadowed Sophia during her final months at Mason's firm, always scribbling notes, always trying to stay invisible. But now, her message was bold. "I've been following everything. I read the article. I saw the press releases. And I just wanted to say thank you for showing me that silence doesn't equal weakness. You didn't just survive. You became undeniable. That's what I want to be." Sophia sat back in her chair, her throat tightening. She hadn't realized until that moment how far the ripple had traveled. It wasn't about taking down a company anymore. It was about lifting others up. And she had done that, simply by refusing to be erased. 2 weeks later, a professor from Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management invited her to speak at a leadership seminar. The topic: power, culture, and the cost of silence. At first, she hesitated. She wasn't a public speaker. She didn't crave attention. She led through action, not microphones. But this wasn't about her anymore. It was about what the story had become. So she said yes. The auditorium was full. Students, executives, HR professionals, founders, even a few journalists. Some had printed out the article that had gone viral. Others held notebooks open, pens ready. Sophia stood at the podium in a tailored black blazer. No slides, no script, just her. She began simply. For 2 years, I built an empire I never got credit for. Then I received a $25 gift card and a legal threat. That was the moment I stopped seeing myself as loyal, and started seeing myself as powerful. A quiet gasp echoed from the front row. I wasn't special, I was just quiet. And in corporate America, quiet people get used, until they leave. Then they become threats. Heads nodded across the room. Leadership isn't about raising your voice. It's about raising the standard. It's about noticing the people who carry the weight and asking them how they're really doing. She spoke about value, about culture, about the fine line between discipline and manipulation, about how power built on fear never lasts, but trust multiplies. She ended with this: you don't owe loyalty to those who weaponize it. And you don't have to burn bridges to walk away. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is build something better, quietly, relentlessly, and on your own terms. The applause started small, then it rose into something thunderous. Not for spectacle, but for truth. After the event, people lined up to speak to her. Some wanted advice, others just wanted to say thank you. But one person stood apart. Near the back, lingering by the exit, an older man. Silver hair, pressed navy suit, tired eyes. It took Sophia a moment to recognize him. Mason, her former boss. He didn't approach. He didn't speak. He just watched. And for the first time in all the years she had known him, his expression wasn't smug, superior, or performative. He looked small, not because she had made him feel that way, but because the empire he'd built on intimidation had crumbled. And she, once the efficient, quiet one, had outlasted it all. Their eyes met for a single second. She didn't flinch. He turned and left without a word. And she let him go. Because she had already said everything that needed to be said, with her actions. Her work, her rise. A few months later, Sophia stood on the rooftop of her new company's headquarters. They were unveiling a new client success center, designed using her operational model. Her team was there. Daniel was there. And for the first time, her name was etched in glass on the entrance plaque. Built on the Carter framework. She touched the lettering lightly. Not out of pride, but out of peace. She had turned the lowest point of her career into a legacy. Not a scar, but a system. One that outlived the noise. One that proved her quiet strength was never weakness, it was design. And as the sun set behind the skyline, Sophia smiled, finally, fully, not because she had defeated anyone, but because she had become undeniable. True power doesn't come from titles, contracts, or loud meetings. It comes from clarity, character, and conviction. Sophia's journey teaches us that when loyalty is used as a leash, it's no longer loyalty, it's control. And the quiet people? The ones who keep everything running. Who never ask for credit. Who absorb the pressure in silence. They are often the backbone of organizations. And the most dangerous people to underestimate. Sophia didn't seek revenge. She chose rebuilding over retaliation. Purpose over pride. And in doing so, she exposed a truth too many ignore. You don't have to fight dirty to win. You just have to fight smart. When the world tells you your value is small, your exit should be loud. But Sophia's exit wasn't loud, it was precise. And it changed everything. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming so good, so trusted, so unshakably effective, that they can't function without you, and have to watch you thrive without them. If you've ever been undervalued at work, silenced, or told you're lucky to be here, take a step back, not to retreat, but to prepare. Document your impact, build relationships, learn systems, create a quiet plan. You don't need to scream to be powerful. You need to be intentional. Use every oversight as motivation. Use every small slight as a signal to sharpen your skills. When you finally walk away, do it cleanly and confidently. The world respects clarity more than noise. Remember, you're not just an employee. You're an architect of outcomes. And the right people, the right companies, they'll see it. And they'll stand by you. Thank you for choosing to listen to this story among thousands of stories out there. Like and subscribe to continue listening to the latest stories.